So you want to move to Spain. There's a lot of complicated puzzle pieces to put together to make your move a smooth and easy process. So we're here to share with you some realistic timelines, things that you can do to prepare for your future move to España.
In this video, we're going to use a timeline that starts 1 year before your target move date and takes you all the way to the flight so that you know all the things that you have to get done before you move so that your entry into Spain is as successful and easy as possible. This video is brought to you by Level 8, but more on that in a bit.
I'm Lainey.
And I'm Shawn.
And this is Days We Spend.
Getting ready to move to Spain.
1 year before you move. We recommend starting your planning process about a year before you want to make the move to Spain.
One of the first things that you should do is to meet with a wealth advisor. This is something that we didn't do, and having lived here for 3 years and navigated Spanish taxes and American taxes, we really wish that we'd done this. Meeting with a wealth advisor at least a year before your move will give you the tools that you need to better understand your financial future in Spain. This can include things like your capital gains liability, how you're going to pay your taxes in Spain, what you're actually going to owe, and if you're someone who's working or retired, what that means for things like Social Security, either payments or receiving your Social Security, as well as how to handle your assets in the United States or other country. If you're someone who has the means to move to Spain, you probably have enough wealth to be concerned about what that actually looks like. So you really should talk to a wealth advisor so that you fully understand your financial situation.
And remember, if you move to Spain before July, you are a tax resident for that entire year. So if you want to avoid filing your Spanish taxes for as long as possible, move in July. Then you'll get to live almost 6 months in Spain, but you're not a tax resident.
It will mean that you're not a tax resident for that 5 or 6 months, which is a really nice thing to do. And a wealth advisor would probably tell you to do that. And they might even tell you to defer your move while you handle a lot of the big financial things that you need to get done before you become a tax resident in Spain.
Such as selling a house.
If you sell your house and then move to Spain and you don't plan it, you might end up paying some very expensive capital gains taxes.
Another thing you can do before your move is to do your research. You're watching this video.
You're
Congratulations.
doing
You're doing your research. We recommend researching things like where you want to live, things you want to do in the area around your future home, and cultural events and festivals that you might want to put on a calendar to plan to attend.
If you're interested in a certain part of Spain, look at the logistics of that. Are there hospitals nearby? Do you have children? Is there a good school? Is it connected to the rest of Spain on a high-speed train network or a nearby airport? These are all things that you can vet before you make the move. There are a lot of incredible places to live in Spain. So this is going to take you months to wrap your head around your potential future home.
We did a whole video on how to choose a place to live in Spain, so you can go ahead and click that. It's up above.
Visiting Spain is a great way to find out if you want to live in Spain. Sounds kind of obvious, but we always tell people to actually take a scouting trip to Spain. Once you've done the research and once you've actually wrapped your head around the financial implications of a future move, it's time to get here. You don't need a visa to visit Spain. You can spend up to 90 days here. So spend a lot of time here. If you think you want to live on the coast, rent an apartment on the coast, explore the area, visit some of the bigger cities. Again, make it whatever you want, but come here not as a vacation, come here on a journey of exploration. Stress test some of your ideas. Actually coming to Spain for a few weeks or a few months, if you can, will give you a really good sense of what's going to work and what's not going to work. So the time of year that you want to move to Spain does actually matter a bit. Like we said, with July being sort of the tax cutoff for the fiscal year, that's something to be aware of. But also if you plan to move in a busy time of year for like Spanish festivals or holidays, that can be challenging, especially if you're trying to find an apartment or get visa or bureaucratic paperwork done.
And just remember that most of Spain takes the entire month of August off and from mid-December until January 7th. So those are just 2 big blocks of time that is just not a good idea to plan your move or to move right before so that your paperwork isn't in limbo for all that duration.
When you're planning your move, it's really important to think about a realistic budget. We've talked about this a lot on the channel. We have tons of videos about our budget here and how you can potentially make a budget for yourself. Be realistic with your goals. If you want to move in a year, it's time to get serious about the numbers. Think about realistic rent, food, and other things like insurance and transportation, because that's going to impact your timeline a lot.
And lastly, we recommend starting or continuing learning Spanish. Speaking Spanish, learning Castellano is essential to becoming part of your local community in Spain and integrating, as well as just navigating daily life here. So the sooner you start getting more comfortable with speaking and hearing and reading Spanish, Spanish, the much more smoothly your transition is going to go. And that's something that I wish we had done more seriously sooner, was to just start taking Spanish classes.
We've taken 2 years of the Escuela de Idiomas here, and while it's been helpful, we're both still struggling with fluency. It's something that we want to address on this channel. I wish that we were further along in our Spanish journey, honestly. I know it's obvious, but learning Spanish is the key to enjoying your life here. If you have to call the power company and you're freaking out about having a phone call in Spanish, that's going to limit your options here. So when you're done with this video, watch the whole thing. Start learning verbs. You can start today, and we recommend it as soon as possible. So you've assessed your financial situation. Hopefully you've visited Spain by this point and you are studying Spanish every day. 6 months before we move is the time to get serious about your visa and bureaucratic legal paperwork so that you can actually move to Spain.
No matter what visa you decide to move on, you have to apply for that. We're on the non-lucrative visa, the NLV, and there's also a digital nomad visa, the DNV, that's very popular. Both of these visas have a pretty big timeline for gathering the correct paperwork that you need. And all the experts that we've talked to recommend 6 months before you move, you start getting that paperwork and the process going for your applications for your visas.
This is a moving target, and we know it's frustrating to give just sort of general advice because every consulate is different, every situation is different, and there are going to be snags in the timeline, like getting something apostilled, getting translations, sworn translations for things. This is why 6 months is kind of a sweet spot, because your application might fly through and it might be done in a few weeks, but the more realistic truth is that it could take several months. If you're applying for the digital nomad visa, that timeline is going to be slightly different because you actually get your visa once you've moved to Spain. On the NLV, you have to get the visa before you move. On the digital nomad visa, you apply as a tourist. So talk to an expert because that's going to affect a lot of things, but you still need to get all the apostilles done and all that paperwork done, which still does take time.
As part of your visa process, you're also going to need to purchase private Spanish health insurance, and that's something you're going to need to do in the 6 months before you move.
It is time to start dealing with your stuff. 6 months might feel kind of early to start selling or giving away things, but honestly, I've moved abroad several times and it always takes longer than you think.
You need to make the decision whether you're going to sell everything, whether you want to ship your belongings to Spain, if you're going to get a storage unit and deal with some of your stuff later, or if you're just going to maximize all of your luggage on the flight and just take what you can carry.
We've used a combination of multiple trips with maxed out checked and carry-on bags.
We did liquidate a lot of our belongings before that. So the things that are stored is not as much as an entire house or an apartment worth of belongings. It's like a small closet of stuff. Are you selling your car? What do you want to do with sentimental objects and items or things that are maybe passed down through your family? Deciding what to do with all of these different things, it does take a long time because, I mean, for me, it was a pretty emotional process getting rid of stuff. I underestimated it and I do not recommend that. If you are going to maximize all of your checked luggage and carry-on bags, which is what we did, and we've done it 3 times, we brought everything we could on the plane, but that means you need good luggage to withstand all the perils of air travel. When we checked and carried on all of our luggage for our move to Spain, our favorite bags were these level 8 luggage sets. Level 8 bags make your move to Spain a little bit easier with their sturdy construction, stylish design, wide telescoping handle for easy movement. They're tough and durable because cobblestone streets are real, and they have tons of space for all your most important stuff. Use our discount code in the description for 10% off your level 8 luggage purchase.
Once you've actually started your visa paperwork, you should get a realistic sense of when your paperwork will be approved.
Usually when you apply for your visa, you need to give the visa paperwork like an intended move date. So use that intended move date as your working target.
Yeah, and you have time after you get granted your visa to get to Spain. You don't have to go like the next week, but that means that you can book your flight. We recommend booking your flight with a little bit of buffer room, obviously, but do that as soon as possible so you lock in the best rates.
Possibly get something that's changeable and refundable.
We've heard from viewers and friends that they had to keep moving their flight because the paperwork was held up for one reason or another. So changeability is important.
You can also book your short-term housing because we don't recommend buying or renting a place sight unseen. What we did is we booked an Airbnb, or you can do a booking.com apartment in the location that you think you want to live. Book that for 3 or 4 weeks so that you can then start your apartment search once you get to Spain.
3 months before your move, a few things have happened. Hopefully you're still learning Spanish. Way to go, muy bien. You've also started to deal with your possessions in a realistic way, either selling some of your biggest things or managing what you're going to do with them. And you've probably at least filed your visa paperwork, or you're very close to finishing that process, which means there are a few extra things that you can start doing now, which is start saying goodbye.
It takes time to say goodbye to all of your family and friends back home. If you have family or friends scattered around the United States or your home country,
or Canada or Australia,
it takes time to say, okay, well, I'm going to go visit you one more time, or we're going to do a vacation together before we go. It takes a long time to say goodbye to everyone. And if you leave it all for the last week, you're going to be too stressed out to really enjoy those moments.
Moving to Spain will disconnect you from the people back home. Time zones are different. You will see people a lot less than you think. Even if you can stay connected online, it's important to say goodbye in person. And we recommend starting that as soon as you know you're actually making the move. Don't do this a year before. That's obnoxious.
You can join Facebook or meetup groups in your chosen region. We recommend looking for expat and immigrant groups, maybe special interest clubs like a hiking group. And that way you can start to meet and talk with people online that you are going to potentially interact with in your daily life. That's how we met our very first friends that we made in Orense, as I met them on a Facebook group and then we met in person when we arrived. And we're still great friends today.
We're such good friends. Another thing that you can also start to do is move some money into euros. We've talked about this on the channel several times. We use Wise to handle our money from the US into euros and then finally into our Spanish bank account. It's very easy to get started. We have links in, a lot of our videos. You can check that out. Start thinking about how you're going to pay for things in euros by getting some of your money into a European bank, even before you get a European bank account.
It's time to purchase your other transportation. You've got the flight already, but what about the train to your local destination or a rental car? You'll need a rental car if you're moving with pets or an exorbitant amount of luggage, which you might if you checked all the amount of bags like we did and that we're recommending. But also the local trains typically release tickets about 3 months in advance. Not all of them. Sometimes it's like a month before, but 3 months before is the time to book that rental car or think about if you're going to take a train. We also recommend visiting all of your doctors and getting all your last minute appointments and checkups, but also you need physical copies of your records because you're going to take those records with you anytime you go to see the Spanish doctor.
This is really important if you see a specialist or if you have any pre-existing conditions, as this will be something that you need to deal with in Spain, and finding a specialist with medical records in hand is much easier than starting from scratch. We love Spanish healthcare, but one of the biggest differences from here and back home is that over-the-counter medicines are a little harder to get and typically a little bit more expensive. So we recommend stocking up on any over-the-counter medicines that you use regularly.
Especially things like flu medication, allergy medicine, and maybe pain relief, because those are very expensive and sometimes really hard to find in Spain or require a prescription. So we recommend stocking up on like your favorite NyQuil and DayQuil and things like that before you move. Also make sure you've filled all of your prescriptions so that you have all of the medicine that you need for, a good length of time before you actually leave the United States or your home country. 1 month before you move, your visa is probably in hand. You've been approved. The countdown has officially begun.
Now it's time to get serious about transitioning into life in Spain.
One thing you need to consider is your mail. So what we did is we changed our mailing address to our family's home address. And you can ask a family or a friend to receive your mail in the US. This is for the United States. The other thing you can do is sign up for informed delivery on USPS. And that way you get a scan of the envelopes and the packages that are coming your way. So you can kind of say, hey, friend or family, can you look out for this credit card bill I was expecting or this tax document I was expecting? And honestly, I have my family open that and take a picture and send it to me.
Not everyone has family and not everyone wants their documents being opened by other people. We understand that. There are a lot of services out there that do this kind of informed delivery for you outside of the US Post Office. We're curious to explore some of those. You can also get a VPN. We use Surfshark. They've got a great bundle of plans. This is just really helpful, especially when you're logging into multiple accounts from overseas. You can also use it for things like Netflix to see, shows that you want in different countries. So sign up for that now and start learning how to use it if you're someone who hasn't used a VPN in the past.
1 week before your move. Are you ready? Are you freaking out? Now is all the last minute things you've left to the end, which is hopefully not learning Spanish and saying goodbye. We're dealing with your stuff.
there are a few things that you should do this last week. Obviously, just enjoy where you are. But one of the most important things you can do in this last week is port your US number over to Google Voice. This is a slightly complicated process, so we made a whole other video about it. You need to keep your number to check in on all your accounts, port it to Google Voice, but you want to wait until the last minute to do that because once you port it, you can only use it via Google Voice. We also recommend getting an international driver's permit. We get ours from AAA. You're allowed to drive in Spain without a Spanish license for 6 months, but the IDP is just a little bit of extra security if you get pulled over.
You want to take photos of all of your important documents, and this could be a whole gambit of different stuff, but this is usually banking information, or maybe it's your tax information. To me, it's papers that I'm sometimes bringing with me or things that I'm not bringing with me that I need a backup of.
A lot of these things are available online, especially things like bank statements, but make sure that you've got the information you need before you cross an ocean. It's also time to cancel any subscriptions that you have in your home country because, surprise, surprise, a lot of these won't work in Spain. Something like Amazon Prime is a great example. That is a US subscription. If you move to Spain with your American Prime, you can order off of the American website, but having things shipped to Spain will come with an insane customs duties.
Amazon.com is different than Amazon.es.
It's not just the language or location. They're completely different websites and they require unique subscriptions. If you're someone who wants to use Amazon in Spain, you need to sign up for a different account. Cancel those things because you literally can't use them here.
And the very last thing is to pack your bag. Use a luggage scale so you know how heavy your suitcases are before you get to the airport and you're not surprised with overweight charges. Tuck all those breakable things in your carry-ons. Bring your sentimental items with you.
Wear all your hats. Stack your hats.
Wear all your clothes on the plane. Stick all your stuff in that hard side level 8 bag, and you are ready to get on that plane and enjoy your new life in Spain.
There's a few things that we didn't talk about in this video because we don't have experience with them, but they're really important if they are a part of your life. If you have pets, that's a whole nother thing of getting your pets approved to live in Spain and actually making the move. If you have kids, which is interesting that I put that after pets. If you have kids, you need to get them enrolled in school and figure out all of their medical stuff. If you're quitting your job or if you're working remotely, you need to clear that with your boss or quit at the appropriate time. Again, these are things that we don't do.
And as we previously mentioned, selling your house is also something to consider, which we didn't have to deal with before we moved.
If those 4 things are part of your life, please prioritize them, but they're not something in our experience, so we don't have any advice about that. Thank you so much for spending your day with us. We hope that this realistic timeline is helpful for you. I know it's a stressful process trying to handle all the deadlines and the moving targets, but you can do it, especially if you follow some of the tips that we've laid out here.
If you want more information about how to move to Spain, we've got a whole playlist that you can click on. We also got a video that features how we found our apartment once we arrived in Spain, which is the next step you have to do. I am Lainey.
I'm Shawn.
Get ready to enjoy your life in Spain.
Bienvenido.